I recently saw a post on Instagram that has stuck with me. It was shared by the account 10,000 Hours Outside, an account that focuses on getting children in the great outdoors. They brought up this idea, though, of middle childhood. And many of us forget that from toddler to teen, there is that in-between. And if we skip over those in-between years too quickly, those kids miss out on an important childhood experiences. To prevent that from happening, we need to recognize this age group, their unique challenges and changes too. We've asked our Studio 5 parenting contributor Heather Johnson to help us understand how we can best parent during the middle childhood. Good to see you. Middle childhood, that was a phrase that grabbed my attention. Are we growing up these tweens too quickly? It's like we jump over that little age window and head right into pre-adulthood.
Yeah, right into teenage years, right? So we're looking at 10 to 12-year-olds here. And yeah, we are rushing them. We are moving them through this phase so fast. And sometimes even as parents, if we're not doing it, society is doing it. Pop culture is doing it. There are some huge challenges that are unique to this space. One is that there are so many inconsistencies with this age group. We have to plan for this to be inconsistent, right?
What do you mean by inconsistent?
They one day love us and the next day they can't stand us,
okay,
right? They one day are really happy about life and the next day life is the worst. Their bodies and minds are going through things, one that we can't wrap our brain around because their challenges are unique, which is another really big difference between us as we try to parent them.
Okay.
But these inconsistencies, we don't necessarily expect them. We look at them as kids. We're like, you're 10, you're fine.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they're like this all the time and we're going, what in the world? So we have to plan for these inconsistencies.
Okay.
It's a big challenge. The other really big challenge that comes to this age group is they're consistently trying to hold on to relationships, and so are we with their parents. We're trying to keep that relationship, but at the same time, they're trying to form relationships with their peers. And so there is a huge danger. If we don't negotiate this really well, we invite a lot of rebellion. We'll invite a lot of those things in the teenage years.
So let me translate. I'm a parent. I'm hugging my 10-year-old too tight. You are coming to the family swim night. You are skipping that friend activity to be with your family who loves you. So
right.
That's going to promote down the road or even in the immediate future that rebellion that you talk about.
Well, if we're using power, and so if we're talking about how we're going to parent this age group, that's one of the things we want to worry about first, is we want to make sure that we're not parenting them through power, but instead through a relationship.
Okay.
So in that space, we need to understand that they're trying to figure out how to be a peer and be at the swim party and be a little bit big, but also we want to keep a relationship with them at the same time. That's the big challenge of this age, because if we don't keep the relationship, we lose our capacity to influence them as they become teenagers. Mm-hmm. We lose that, right? We've said this before and we can't say it enough. Nothing matters more than a relationship. Nothing. It has to sit at the foundation of everything we do. And right here and now with this age group, we want to be sure that it is our focus. And also, we have to let them start to navigate and grow up, right? So we're balancing this just like they are. And so we don't want to parent through power. We don't want to force. We instead want to build a relationship so that we can communicate, so that we can talk to them.
What if my child, though, is consistently, I mean, because if we don't force, a lot of times, and we are giving up a lot of power, as you talk about, and that could lead to a child continuously, choosing friends or pulling away from family. What do we do in that situation?
Yeah, so as long as we're working to understand them, they will then be open to hearing our perspective on hanging out as a family, as well as allowing them to venture out with their friends. We can find a balance when they feel understood, right? But what we tend to do in this age is go, no, you can't go, family's more important. No, you need to stay home, we're doing this today. Not realizing that they're also trying to figure out what friends are like, and they're trying to figure out where they fit with friends. So we want to create that balance. If there is anything to use as leverage during these years, it has to be love. Love has to be the only leverage we use here. Instead of this power, this I tell you, I'll control you, no you won't, what you're wearing is funny, what you're saying is goofy.
Okay, give me an example of how I leverage love then without applying guilt.
Yeah, so remember, guilt is going to be any time we start to and turn it into shame when we imply to them that as a result of their thoughts or feelings or actions, they're worth less. Right? And that's going to turn it into more of a shame space. Now we're using the leverage improperly. But when we love them, it means we're going to sit down and they're going to say, I don't want to go bowling with you. I want to go to my friend's pool party. And we sit down and say, tell me more about that. Who's going to be there? What are you looking forward to? And we give them a space where they reason it out with us. Now we're using love as leverage instead of telling them what they're going to do or forcing them to do something. They've got to know that it's safe to figure themselves out during these years. Right? It won't be a solid figuring out, but it's the beginning of that. And they have to know that it's safe to do it. And love is what will allow them to feel safe to venture to their friends and still know they can always come back to us.
And that safety, that security, you say, has to also be kind of a leading characteristic of our parenting efforts in this phase.
It does. This means that, again, we're listening more, we're loving more, we're holding back on lecturing. We're trying really hard not to quiz them all the time, right? Which we want to do. This also means that we are not embarrassing them in front of their friends. This one touches home. I often hear teenagers this age, or tweens and tweens this age, say, it really hurts my feelings when my parents embarrass me. What this would sound like oftentimes is, a parent with other peers around saying, well, what grades do you get? And so your child's friend says, oh, I don't know, A's and B's. And then the mom or dad says, oh yeah, well, she's getting D's. Look, they get A's and B's, you just get D's. Now, we think as parents that saying things like that is gonna motivate our child to get A's and B's. All it does is ruin a relationship. All it does is show our children that not only will we embarrass them and throw all their uncomfortable things in front of other people, which breaks that relationship, but then it puts our kids in a position where they can't venture out and make mistakes and feel safe coming back to us to navigate them. And so now we've got this power again, this manipulation, this control over the relationship.
And you can see how it easily cross that line from trying to break the ice to breaking the relationship,
exactly
right? You're
right.
trying to play it casual around the friends and make it open and even funny, but it does cross that relationship line.
It does, and even little things like saying, they say, can we go to my room and hang out? And we go, well, your room's always a mess. I don't think you should take them down there. But the peers hear that. We don't realize what that's doing. It isn't connecting us to them.
So there's the security, there's the safety. Also the values, you say, need to be taught during this phase.
They do, and we're always living by values, but this is where we're gonna start setting limits for them a little bit different. They're venturing out, they're staying at friends' house later, they're going to, the pool alone. They're doing all these things at this age. And so we wanna make sure that we're setting our limits based on our value system. We wanna help our kids understand that, but we need to know their responsibility, if we're calling it that at this point, at this age, is to question those limits. So when they come to us to question, instead of seeing it as they're trying to go against us or
challenge,
they're really just trying to understand them. And if we can change that mindset and realize they're trying to gather information, they're trying to figure out, they simply just want to better understand, we then don't have to get defensive about it. It's part of their makeup from 10 to 12 to figure out, well, why in the heck do we follow this value?
That's reassuring. That takes it down. We've got about a minute left, a couple lines on the next 2 points, which I'm intrigued to hear your take on. You say we need to understand the influence pop culture has on these kids.
We do. The more pop culture is involved in these kids' lives, the more at risk they are for everything uncomfortable that we would never want our kids to run into. And there is no other way to say it. When you are worried about all of those challenges, whether it's drugs or alcohol or pregnancy, it doesn't matter where you want to go. The more pop culture they see and are involved in, the more likely they are, or at risk they are to find those things.
We try to limit that?
We do.
Okay.
But this is teaching them to live in it, but not of it. We can't keep everything from them. We need them to know what to do with this around them. We need them to know.
Finally, you want us to overlook the right things. What are the right things?
Yes,
Heather?
Trends. Let's overlook trends. Let's overlook the silliness. Think back to 10 and 12. I can look at our girls especially. And one came to us at 11 and said she wanted to whiten her teeth. And I remember thinking, wait, I don't even whiten. You're 11. Like, what are we talking about here, right? And then they come, and I remember another daughter who wanted to always wear leggings under any dresses or skirts. Or one of our daughters, if they hear this, went through this phase where she wanted bubble braids in her hair. Do you know what bubble braids are?
Yeah, they're cute.
But she didn't want little bubble braids. She wanted like big, huge, giant, on the top of her head bubble braids that stuck out. All trends that when I look at them as a parent, as a mom, I'm like, really?
Are you sure?
Is that, I don't know. In public, do we want to go that route? And you kind of have those feelings. We have to overlook the right things.
Just go with it.
So many of these things are them figuring out what's going on. Now, if they came to us with the wrong things, if it's drugs, if it's those bigger, obviously we navigate those. But most of what they're coming to us with are things we need to overlook and say, hey, good work doing your own hair today. Wow, I love that you're trying something new. They will come to figure out really quickly that 11, they don't need teeth whitener, and that those bubble braids are too big. They'll figure it out all on their own.
Overlook the right things.
All on their own.
Heather, this was really insightful. Thank you so much. To contact Heather for counseling, you can find her information on the Studio 5 website.